Oh, be careful, it's dark. Is that a bear?
How did I end up here? Let's find out. This is a journey through rugged cliffs, lush forests, and dramatic coastlines. Welcome to Nova Scotia.
It's 5:30 a.m. right now. We just got through airport security and we're about to head out to Halifax, Nova Scotia. This Canadian province is well known for its biodiversity, scenery, and strong ties to the Atlantic Ocean. But first things first, the boys gotta eat.
So after a quick stop at Subway, we grabbed our stuff and boarded the plane. Our flight departed right on schedule, which was a nice break from the hecticness of getting to the airport itself. We barely hit any turbulence, and the staff at Porter Airlines made sure to keep your boy well hydrated. At some point, I guess I fell asleep because the next thing I knew, we had landed in Halifax. Hyped to go explore, we quickly hopped into our rental and made our way out of the airport. Our goal was to make it to the Cape Breton Highlands, almost 400 kilometers away, so we really had no time to waste. The drive itself was really enjoyable, full of breathtaking views the moment we left city limits. Taking the Trans-Canada Highway here was a stark difference to the GTA. Not only was there way less traffic, but I also found the drivers here to be much more courteous. In Toronto, sharing the road is literally a foreign concept. We also saw some cool rock formations along the highway. These were typically red and gray sandstone, though I noticed quite a bit of siltstone as well. If I had to guess, I'd say that explosives were likely used to construct this road, clearing out any obstructing rocks. And as we continued onwards, we saw our first glimpses of both the Bay of Fundy and the Bras d'Or Lake biosphere. The picturesque, clear blue water had me captivated, and it took a lot of self-control to not pull over and hop in for a swim.
So we just pulled up to Baddeck. We drove in from Halifax. Took us about two and a half hours. And honestly, it was a good drive. So shout out to all the Nova Scotian drivers out there. Y'all way better than Toronto. I'm gonna give y'all that. We drove through some of the Cape Breton Highlands and we're gonna do the rest of it. And just briefly touching on the Cape Breton Highlands itself, it was a really unique ecosystem to see. A lot of forests and a lot of unique rock formations. We definitely will be driving and checking it out a little bit more. But for now, let's go get our food.
For lunch, we stopped at Tom's Pizza in the village of Baddeck. And let me tell you, these people really redefined the meaning of extra cheese. Had our spot smelling so good, even this behemoth of a wasp stopped by to check it out. Luckily, no casualties occurred, and we quickly got back on road to continue our journey. This time, we drove through a varied assortment of different habitats. From boreal forests full of evergreens, to freshwater wetlands teeming with microfauna, the natural beauty of these highlands was clearly making its presence felt.
We just took a quick stop right now for this picturesque landscape over here.
And the craziest part is, with all this scenery around me, at no point in time did the drive begin to feel repetitive.
We stopped at another lookout point, still on the Cabot Trail, but just taking this view right here.
We found that the designated lookout points were all placed in ideal locations. This one here is right off a bend in the road. To the left is a pristine view of the open water, and panning over showcases the coastal forests enveloping the region. Without a doubt, this is a place abundant with all types of wildlife, with this narrow road being the only indication of human activity.
I was talking about crazy views and scenery and all of that over there. But take this in. It's even crazier. And apparently there's a trail that we can walk on. We probably won't just based on time, but it would have definitely been a cool opportunity to see what we could have found out in the wilderness over there.
Over there.
Over there.
Not over there. Over there.
We continued down the Cabot Trail, but it wasn't long before nature made us stop once again.
Still on the Cabot Trail, but we had to make one more stop. Let's take a look at this environment around me right now. It's clear to see that these are really unique rock formations. I'm not too sure exactly what's going on with the rocks over here, but the coloring as well as the pattern of erosion that we see
It's kind of slang.
definitely stands out. I like it. I like it a lot.
As much as we would have liked to stay, it was starting to get dark, and we knew we had to keep moving.
Taking the tree wall to the left of me, that looks insane.
Actually insane.
Like, actually insane.
The terrain here was rugged, and while the roads were well maintained, they were still full of sharp turns and unexpected changes in elevation. We knew that this landscape, combined with the lack of visibility from no streetlights, could be a recipe for disaster. On top of that, there was also an abundant moose population in the region. So while enjoying the sunset, I also had to keep a lookout for the world's largest species of deer. Alright, so we made it to Cheticamp, which is this little village along the Cabot Trail. There's a couple of these small communities, but Cheticamp is where we're crashing for the night. So overall, it was a solid day one. A lot of driving, but those views were worth it. And tomorrow we're gonna have a little bit more of an in-depth exploration as we actually hike some of these trails and see what we can find. Stay tuned, but for now, I'm signing out. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Good morning, YouTube. So, day 2 of Nova Scotia, and I'm here with some good news as well as some bad news. So, let's start it off with the bad news first and get that out the way. It looks like some of our plans for the weekend, specifically checking out the whales off the Bay of Fundy, might be canceled due to inclement weather. Apparently, we're expecting some high winds, and unfortunately, it looks like that's not going to happen. So, we're still going to try and see if we can catch some whales off the shoreline. I brought binoculars because your man came ready, but is what it is. Now, for the good news, we're about to head out to Skyline Trail, which is one of those hikes that I was talking about earlier. It's definitely going to be something we want to check out, so let's head on over there as soon as I got some breakfast first.
Thankfully, finding food wasn't difficult, and our B&B host had even graciously made us blueberry muffins the night before. So with a full belly, we started our journey down the Cabot Trail once again. However, this time, the landscape was an entirely different scene. Overnight, warm, moist air from the south had been cooled by Atlantic waters, blanketing the area in a thick fog. This wasn't mist, but it did look mystical. It also reminded me of Les Suites, another weather phenomenon unique to Cape Breton. This is when a low-pressure system presses down on the winds flowing over the Highland Plateau. These winds get trapped between the plateau and low pressure, causing an effect similar to blowing air through a straw. With wind speeds up to 200 kilometers an hour and the potential to last up to half a day, Les Suites can occur weekly during fall, winter, and spring months. Good thing we got to avoid it.
Hey guys, so we took a little stop right now just to take in the view. But there's a couple things going on that I want to quickly point out. So first of all, can you see how the water over there looks to be like a little band of different color? I'm not sure why exactly that is. Originally, I would have thought boat wake, but I don't see no boats. So
turns out this was due to Langmuir circulation, which is when the wind blows across the water surface, creating cells of water which circulate in alternating directions symmetrically from one another.
The second thing I wanted to point out was, if you can see right there, there's the land bridge, but there's a break right in between where the water would flow, and that would probably be a really cool place to check out for animal migration, in the sense that it doesn't look like this body of water and that surrounding outlet over there is connected in any other way. It seems to be fully closed off, but that one entrance there allows animals to cross between both environments. And if we were to have a little bit more time and actually investigate what's going on around here, then I'm pretty sure that's a good place to check out. Also, I would like to point out the rock formations. That's really cool from a geological perspective.
Especially considering these rocks are estimated to be 1.8 billion years old.
Realistically, within this one closed off spot, you got 1, 2, 3 if you count the beach area, 4, 5 if you count the cliff sides. I don't know what you'd really find on the cliff sides, but probably bugs or like some type of small crustaceans. So
Not crustaceans.
given that, there's about 5 different environments all within this one little area. So a really cool place to do environmental studies, in my opinion. But anyway, let's keep going and see what else we can find.
Pow.
So that shot ended, but I did forget to mention one other thing. If you look at the forest over at the top of that cliffside, you can see how it's pretty much almost fully enveloped by the cloud cover. That reminds me a lot of the cloud rainforest in the Amazon.
Thank God you got an iPhone 15. It serves all of us.
So after a little bit of bird watching, we continued down the Cabot Trail, driving past enormous swaths of wilderness. The lakeside forests here were clearly an ideal habitat for many animals. In fact, over 40 species of mammals alone call this place home, including red foxes, black bears, bobcats, white-tailed deer, snowshoe hares, red squirrels, and of course, moose. My favorite mammal found here would no doubt have to be the Canada lynx. These elusive felines are like the ghosts of these forests. Speaking of ghosts, the further up the cliffs we went, the more foggy the air became. Soon, it was difficult to see beyond just a couple feet.
Alright, so we were supposed to do the Skyline Trail, but as you can see behind me,
Where's the trail?
I don't think we're gonna see much, so let's just keep it moving. Next stop, Halifax.
We drove a little further, but it wasn't long before we came across another amazing lookout point. This time, it was a rocky shoreline off the base of a barren hillside. We even found some bushy growths of the beautiful pink tickseed plant. This perennial often thrives in lowland shorelines.
Real quick, one thing I do want to say, it's commendable how much environmental protection has been established in this area. Like, we've been driving through trees, through forests, through a whole bunch of different natural ecosystems, and it's not really been touched by humans. There's no litter that I see. There's minimal construction. Outside of this one road, you don't really see human influence in this area. So I think it's really cool that the government and environmental groups here in Nova Scotia have prioritized keeping the natural ecosystem in balance, at least to the extent possible, considering humans also live here. So shout out Nova Scotia once again. Alright guys, so 7 hours later, 14 hours over 2 days, we made it back to Halifax.
Period.
Shout out Cape Breton, because that was a great experience, and now we're about to go get some food. So recurring themes, your boy's always hungry. But we're gonna stay in Halifax for a little bit, and then tomorrow we're gonna check out something really cool, and I'm hyped to tell you about it, but y'all gonna have to stay tuned.
Bow, bow, bow.
For dinner, we decided to get fancy with it. We started with the fire bruschetta salsa, and by that, I mean they had it spicy with flavorful peppers. My main course was a mix of veggies and seafood, halibut and shrimp to be exact. And for dessert, we had to get our hands on some tiramisu. Overall, a solid way to end our first actual night in Halifax.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, day 3. We at my second favorite human spot. Number 1's always gonna be the ball court, but I'm hyped to see what they got going on in this museum. Let's go check it out. All right, so we're not even in the museum yet, but we got a coelophysis skeleton already. These little dinosaurs are meat-eating theropods, and they grow to about 6 to 6.5 feet, if I remember correctly. From the late Triassic as well. You might have to fact check me on that, but that's mad cool.
The first thing that caught my eye in the museum was Gus, their featured gopher tortoise. These creatures are named after their digging abilities and live inside solitary burrows. There was also a pair of eastern painted turtles, who for some reason were stacked on top of each other. Something really unique, which I hadn't seen in a museum before, was an active beehive. They had 3 species of bees in the exhibit: cuckoo bees, leafcutter bees, and mason bees. It was fascinating to see how these creatures were all working in cohesion to maintain their communal hive. Being the herpetologist nerd that I am, I spent quite a bit of time observing the various reptiles and amphibians. They had native species on display, including a maritime garter snake, American bullfrog, green frog, and even a yellow-spotted salamander. There was even a coastal display full of mussels and starfish. Walking outside brought us to a display of natural rocks, with my favorite probably being the barite with lead and zinc ore. We ended our museum trip with a walk past the skeleton of a North Atlantic right whale. These baleen behemoths are among the most endangered whale species in the world, growing up to 50 feet long and weighing over 70,000 kilograms.
Alright guys, so we just finished checking out the museum. It was cool, not the biggest one in the world, but I highly recommend it if you pull up to Nova Scotia. We now in the gardens, about to walk around, check out the flowers, and she might grab a little snack, so we'll see what it do.
The gardens were nice to walk through, full of vibrant colors and well-crafted layouts. Some of the flower species we saw included dahlia, chrysanthemums, aster, monkshood, and hibiscus. We also saw a lot of honeybees, busy pollinating these pretty plants. After leaving the garden, we grabbed a quick bite to eat and left Halifax. Our next stop was the rural community of Peggy's Cove.
Baby, I know that you like me. You my future wifey. Soulja boy, tell them yeah, you can be my
Promise you, swear. Yo.
While driving there, we saw some striking cinnamon ferns peeking out of the forest understory. These plants were historically used by Native Americans to remedy colds and headaches.
Look in your cup, all you really want is love. Baby, all you really want is love. Only talk to bosses independent.
Alright, we made it to Peggy's Cove. Let's go check this out.
The first thing that stood out to me were the granite rocks, sculpted smooth by the waves. These formations were originally created when a continental collision caused the rock at the base of Earth's crust to melt. This molten granite was less dense than the solid rocks around it, and so over time, it rose to the surface. A combination of these cooling and uplifting forces, along with glacial movement during the last ice age, are what created these now visible cracks. Walking around a bit further, we came across a small tide pool habitat. I was expecting to see at least a few intertidal species, but surprisingly, the pool seemed empty, at least to my untrained eye. However, out in the ocean, we did spot some waterfowl, resiliently braving the frigid temperatures. There were also a number of seagulls, to the surprise of no one. These hardy birds can pretty much be found everywhere these days. Personally, I really enjoyed watching the water flow over the algae on the rocks. It was a really peaceful and serene experience to take in.
Alright, so we made it to our B&B in Hubli. It's a beautiful little joint over here. I got my doner submarine sandwich ready to go, along with a fine assortment of other snacks. And our B&B host even got us a little gift bag and more snacks. So we signing out for tonight. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
The next day, we started our morning with a drive out west to Lunenburg. This port town is one of only 2 North American urban communities designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Alright, good morning YouTube, or should I say good afternoon. It's now day 4 of Nova Scotia, and we just pulled up to Lunenburg, which is this marina waterfront type area. Really nice, really cool looking. Behind me to the side, we got a fin whale skull, and quite sizable. And we also got a lot of boats around here. So, in fact, if you pan to the left, you can see all these sailboats. And we're gonna check out the area and see what's good. So, stay tuned.
The place was definitely interesting to walk through, with remnants of its history appearing even to this day. The port itself was really nice as well. A serene, picturesque landscape.
Hey, so to all my Canadians, the boat behind me might look familiar. That's the boat, or the schooner as they call it, that's on the back of the Canadian dime.
The front of the Canadian
In
time.
the front of the Canadian dime. Sorry, I don't play with change no more. Big bills only.
So corny.
Oh no!
Okay, so just personal opinion, and you don't have to take my word for it, but I know the Halifax waterfront gets a lot of hype, but I believe the Lunenburg waterfront might actually be a better spot to come check out. It's better views in my opinion, but I'll leave it up to you to go check it out and see which one you like more. Let me know in the comments below.
After a bit more time by the waterfront, we left Lunenburg for our next stop, Mahone Bay. This was another town along the province's south shore.
Alright, so we drove out like 15 minutes from Lunenburg. We're now in Mahone Bay. And it's another one of those waterfront marina type places. I don't know how much animal species would really live out here, but we did see some ducks.
These look to be dabbling ducks, meaning they feed at the water's surface rather than dive for food.
I'm gonna still keep my eye out, but to be honest, I don't really expect to see much out here. But our next stop, we're heading out to Kejimkujik National Park, and that one's gonna be crazy.
The journey there was full of greenery as we drove into Nova Scotia's interior environment. Here, coastal views were replaced by dense layers of forest.
So we pulled up at Kejimkujik National Park. Let's go check it out and see what we can find.
This park, like most national parks, is home to an abundance of wildlife. Some of the more interesting mammals to find here include moose, black bear, bobcats, lynx, beavers, otters, pine marten, fishers, and the star-nosed mole. More commonly found are white-tailed deer, raccoons, red foxes, chipmunks, squirrels, skunks, rabbits, weasels, and porcupines. Reptiles and amphibians also thrive, despite the somewhat cold climate. Painted, wood, and snapping turtles reside by water banks, while snakes, such as garters, red-bellieds, ringnecks, smooth greens, and ribbon, all slither by the forest floor. Spotted newts and salamanders can also be found, alongside green frogs, leopard frogs, toads, and bullfrogs. Also, you may be wondering why the water looks this way. Organic compounds, such as decaying vegetation from nearby bogs, have essentially stained the liquid brown, creating what locals call mercy tea.
Real quick, just pointing out the actual structure of the rock formation over here. You can see it's very sedimentary in nature.
These rocks had started out as fine silt deposited off of what is now the coast of Africa 500 million years ago. Over time, intercontinental movement converted this silt into slate, and it now sits at its current location north of the equator. Of course, Keji, as the locals call it, is also a biodiversity hotspot for bird species. Most often cited are ravens, jays, sparrows, starlings, grouse, ptarmigans, pheasants, ducks, and geese. However, with patience, you may be lucky enough to spot something a bit more exciting. This can range from the common loon to owls, such as the great horned and barred. Among birds of prey here, my favorite would have to be the bald eagle, followed by the osprey and goshawk.
I heard about this lake that we should go check out, so let's go check it out.
This body of water, known as Big Dam Lake, is actually made up of two different parts. From the southeast comes clear water, fed by springs and runoff, while the northwest brings in dark brown Mercy tea. Here, they merge together, creating a nutrient-rich environment.
This tree over here is a birch tree, and you can see how the bark almost peels off. If you're ever stuck in a forest and need to create a fire, this is really good to use as kindling. So, fun fact, survival tip of the day.
After a bit more time exploring Kejimkujik and taking in the start of autumn colors, we headed up to Annapolis Royal for the night. Overall, this was definitely a well-maintained, unique national park, and I would strongly recommend it to all nature enthusiasts.
We made it to a little residence for tonight at Annapolis Royal. And it's a cute little joint. I like it. It got me a guitar for tonight, so I'm gonna learn how to play guitar. Y'all see me in the morning.
One thing about this place, the name definitely matches the look.
Reporting live from mid-tide at Annapolis Royal. It's the oldest town in Canada. I already found some cool little rocks. And there's a whole bunch of seaweed to the right of me. And because we caught it at mid-tide, there's also a lot of barnacles and other shells. We're gonna do a little scavenger hunt, see what we can find. Slowly make our way over to the gardens to go check out some flowers.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find much else off the beach. The water itself, though, is a different story. The Annapolis River is referred to as an estuarine, meaning it receives both freshwater and saltwater input. As a result, many fish species can be found here, including bass, salmon, trout, smelt, and mackerel. We eventually made our way to the garden, ready to explore 17 acres of horticultural arrangements. That's a fancy way of saying flowers. The land was divided into separate areas, each categorized by unique designs, growing methodology, and specific plant species.
Ankle.
I'm not a flower.
You have to keep that in.
All right, so this tree over here, apparently it's extinct in the wild, but they got to get the seeds back in the 1700s. You won't find this if you just walk it through any type of natural habitat. You got to come to a specific location, such as the Annapolis Royal Historic Gardens, in order to see this little egg.
Fried egg.
It was really interesting to see all the different species of vegetation on display. Outside of trees, there were also a multitude of flowers, ferns, shrubs, and, of course, pollinators. They even had a pond setup we could walk over, with aquatic plants thriving on both sides.
Hey guys, so we found a little caterpillar on the ground. I don't want nobody to crush him, so I'm gonna try to get him off onto a tree. However, the thing is, if you look carefully, he's fuzzy, so I don't actually want to touch him because I might catch an allergy or it might sting. I don't know what species it is, so I don't want to risk it. So instead, what we're gonna do is use utensils. Let's go, buddy. Let's go, buddy. Let's go.
After successfully completing that emergency rescue, we continued our journey through the historic garden. Not only were there some plant species I'd never seen before, but the layout itself further added to the vivid imagery, creating striking color contrasts.
Nobody knows where the rivers flow, and I call
Alright, so we made it to the Bay of Fundy, right behind me. It's a little chilly outside, not gonna lie, but that's alright. We got my binoculars with me, so we're gonna see if we can see any whales. If you recall, our original plan was to go whale watching, but due to inclement weather, that didn't happen. Regardless, we're gonna post up at the shoreline, probably drive down a little bit further as well, and see if we get lucky.
The Bay of Fundy is used as a feeding ground and nursery for many whale species due to its abundant shrimp, squid, and fish populations. Most commonly cited are the humpback, mink, and finback whale. Humpbacks are probably the most well known, growing up to 60 feet long, weighing up to 50 tons, and having a reputation for breaching the water's surface in spectacular displays. Even larger are the finback whales, which can reach lengths of over 80 feet. In fact, finbacks are considered to be the second largest whale species in the entire world. A stark contrast to both these behemoths is the minke whale, which typically maxes out at 30 feet and 10 tons. Occasionally, sea whales, pilot whales, and white-beaked dolphins can also be observed.
So, turns out we had to do a little bit more driving, but we made it on the other side of Digby. This place is a little bit more remote. You can see we still have the Bay of Fundy over here where we're going to check for whales. But if you look on the other side, you can see these really cool slate rocks.
These rocks were likely exposed due to construction efforts in the area. While some piles were reduced to rubble, others still showcased their unique geometry. Meanwhile, back out in the water, we continued to look for whales. Outside of the species previously mentioned, there are also rare sightings of blue whales, sperm whales, belugas, and orcas. The endangered North Atlantic right whale may also be found during summer months, where calves are raised right here in the bay.
There's a truck on that.
That's insane.
We continued along the Digby coastline, driving past maroon boats, sun-kissed forests, and rural neighborhoods. Eventually, we decided to pull over and get something to eat, right here in the self-proclaimed scallop capital of the world. Driving to our B&B for the night brought us back into the woodlands, where the water was once again replaced by vast stretches of greenery. Eventually, lack of visibility forced us to slow down as streetlights became few and far between.
Oh, be careful, it's dark. Is that a bear?
To find out, hit that like button. You see, what exactly happened that night is a story for another day. Suffice to say, we survived and stayed on track to complete day 6 of our Scotian science trip. Our final stop before the airport were coordinates to a record-holding geographic location. Burntcoat Head Park in Hants County is known for having the world's largest tidal range. In other words, this is where the greatest difference in height between high tide and low tide can be found.
Alright guys, so day 6 Nova Scotia, this is our last day here. We're still by the Bay of Fundy coastline. We decided to pull up to Burntcoat Provincial Park. And fun fact, all of this area around me right now would usually be underwater when high tide comes. But because we caught it at low tide, we get the opportunity to actually explore. You can see the erosion on the rocks itself. The whole sand over here is red, which is crazy to look at. And we're gonna walk a little bit further down the coastline and see if we can find anything cool. But honestly, man, if you pull up to Nova Scotia, this might be the spot to go check out. I think this might be my favorite place so far that we've been to.
It was amazing to consider that, just hours before, this very land was submerged up to 50 feet underwater. In fact, twice each day, over 160 billion tons of water flow in and out of this region. The strikingly red shoreline and ocean floor is comprised of sandstone and can be dated back to the Triassic period.
So just for context, this land formation over here becomes an island once the high tide actually sets in. So that's a little bit of perspective of how much the water level has receded during low tide in this area.
Walking through at low tide meant we were able to see an abundance of tide pool life. Commonly found here are hermit crabs, green crabs, periwinkles, slipper limpets, moon snails, horse mussels, and whelks. In addition, toad crabs and rock crabs are also often discovered.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To the sky, sightings can be made of migrating shorebirds such as sandpipers and plovers, alongside gulls, terns, and ducks. Other notable species of bird include puffins, herons, egrets, cormorants, falcons, hawks, and of course, the bald and golden eagle. Overall, this was the perfect way to end our expedition. The opportunity to explore a truly unique environment found nowhere else on Earth. A big thank you to Nova Scotia and its people. Not only were y'all great to meet, but I appreciate the efforts being made to keep these natural ecosystems thriving. Shout out to you guys, the audience as well, for putting up with my nonsense for a whole half hour. Hope y'all enjoyed, and hopefully learned something new today. Consider subscribing to stay up to date on future trips. I'll see you in the next one.